This podcast is brought to you by Saga Money, the personal finance experts for people over 50. Whether you want to save, invest, review your will, release equity, or get a mortgage, just go to saga.co.uk/money. Hello and welcome to Experience is Everything with me, Jenni Murray, brought to you by Saga. On this podcast, I'll be talking to people who'll be looking back on experiences they've had throughout their lives and explaining what impact they've had as they've got older. And on today's episode, I am delighted to be joined by an actor who has made it on both sides of the Atlantic. Her iconic TV roles include playing Moll Flanders in The Fortunes and Misfortunes of Moll Flanders, her award-winning performance as Dr. Elizabeth Corday in ER, and River Song in Doctor Who. She's also an experienced theatre actor, performing in plays such as Macbeth, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, and The Tempest. More recently, though, you may have seen her dancing on your TV screens on Saturday nights on Strictly Come Dancing. Alex Kingston, welcome.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Alex, I know you're the oldest of three girls, and your younger sister, Susie, is disabled. So what was life like as you grew up with a very disabled sister?
I think the thing that I've come to realise is that was my life. I didn't see it sort of in any other way. Obviously, I couldn't make sort of comparisons with what would my life be like without Susie. I have no recollection of my life without her in it. She's 3 years younger than me. I remember, to begin with, she couldn't walk. I mean, she can't talk. She can't really function sort of by herself independently whatsoever. It took her a very long time to learn to walk. And I just remember as a child going once a week with my mum to the hospital, going on the bus and Susie being in a pushchair. She had calipers on her legs to try and straighten her legs because her feet had been all bent in utero. She could scooch along the floor. She learnt how to move by sort of scooching along the floor on her bottom. And so my mother, who was incredibly practical and a great seamstress, Susie would always be in some sort of trousers, and my mother would just sew on every pair of trousers this sort of heart leather patches on her bottom so she wouldn't wear the trousers out, and also it would protect her bottom a little bit. And so that's how sort of we lived. And
so did that mean you had a lot of time on your own because your mother would have had to spend most of her time for Susie?
Yes, I did. But again, I think that I just sort of did it naturally. It wasn't conscious, but it's sort of how my life evolved as a child. My mother did have to look after Susie a lot. I mean, she was preoccupied with her. And so I would spend a lot of time in my bedroom playing with my dolls, reading. I loved reading. I actually had a very good social life with the kids on the street. They'd always come and play in the garden. But yes, I sort of learnt how to entertain myself at a very young age.
And did you learn how to maybe entertain other people?
I think probably, yes. I always devised, funnily enough, my mother being German, she would always read me Grimm's fairy tales or German children's stories. And I would then act them out with my friends.
Now, you did win a place at RADA. What was life like for a young drama student in London at that time?
I honestly, if I could have stayed at RADA forever, I would have. I enjoyed my time there so much. I felt we were uh, a slightly unique in our drama school in that um, right from the get-go, we were performing to the Vanbrugh Theatre audience. So other drama schools tended not to let the public see their students until they were in their final year. But the Vanbrugh membership club could come and see us. And I think they enjoyed watching people right at the beginning of learning their craft and seeing them progress. So we were exposed to a public quite early on, and we had directors from outside. So I felt like I was in this fantastic theatre company already, doing these performances. And yes, I would have happily carried on there forever.
Now, you fell in love with somebody at
Yeah.
this period, Ralph Fiennes, who eventually broke your heart.
Yes.
What happened?
I mean, looking back now with hindsight and with age, I mean, he was a young man doing what young men do, which is they have to sow their wild oats. I coming from, in a sense, quite a sort of, I was naive. I was very naive. It's not that my family were restrictive, but I think because of our situation, I didn't have any brothers. I went to a girls' school. We had moved out into the countryside just so that Susie had more space to sort of just be free in nature. I was really quite naive, and for me, I guess I just thought, okay, I've fallen in love. This is the man of my dreams. We're going to marry. We're going to have children. We're going to be living together forever, because that's sort of how I imagined relationships were. And we were very young. So I think in the end, the reason why is just that he wanted more experience. I was totally content with being in that relationship, having children at some point, and that would be my life. But fate has other plans. You never know what your future's going to be until you can look back on it, as I am now, really.
But what did you learn from it about dealing with emotional misery? Because we all have emotional misery at different times in our lives. How useful was it in learning how to deal with things?
I actually would say, and I would say this to young people, including my daughter, is that life moves on. You do survive. And actually, I mean, I sort of felt when I came through this, I felt sort of like a phoenix rising from the ashes. And that's actually quite a good thing to feel. And that you are stronger. And that this heartbreak or whatever this horrendous situation is that you found yourself in, that you've been able to remove yourself from and survive, actually makes you stronger as a person. And so that is what I would, if I was going to say it to anybody, that's what I would say is just wait. You've got a huge life ahead of you, and this is just one little blip in your journey.
Now, there was a period not long after all of that when quite a few of us, frankly, were rather jealous of you because you got a job on a very famous American show called ER, and you were close for quite a while to one George Clooney, and that's why we were all so jealous. How did you make it to ER?
I had no interest in going to Hollywood. It absolutely was. I mean, wasn't even on my radar. I had become an actor because that's what happened in those days, at least. If you wanted to be an actor, it's because you wanted to work on stage. The thought that I might be doing television, I sort of thought, well, maybe at some point I might be lucky enough to. I never imagined doing films. All I was concerned with was at some point in my career, maybe I'll get to the RSC. That was sort of like the pinnacle of my career. So I had done a television show called Moll Flanders, and that was being aired in America. And I had been basically asked to go over to promote it. And while I was promoting it and it aired, I started then to get quite a lot of interest from different studios. And one of those studios was Warner Brothers, and it was ER, and it was the producers of ER. I had never watched the show. I knew it was the biggest hit in the world at that time, but I'd never watched it because I was too busy doing plays and acting myself. So I met the producers. I flew back to England to carry on with my life. And by the time I'd landed, my agent said they would like to introduce you onto the show. I totally thought that they would realise they'd made a mistake. I was sure, I was convinced that, one or two episodes in, they'd realise and then they'd find some reason to send me back to England. I had imposter syndrome. But no.
It all went very well, frankly.
Yeah, it did.
I never missed an episode. I watched it all the time, and I thought you were great.
Thank you.
And this was, I think, from 1997 to 2004, 7 years in that role. So what was it like when it came to the point where you were going to leave such a big programme and presumably financial security?
I had real qualms about joining the show because I was so used to having my sort of creative freedom, which was, you finish a job, you don't know where your next job's coming from, but it's exciting. And I just thought, oh my goodness, I'm going to be typecast. I'm going to join a show. It's going to be like being on a soap. I'll never get another role again. I'll just be associated with that character. So that was my fear. And then after having been on ER and enjoying that financial security, really loving working on that show because the scripts were so good. It was a real feeling of family. Coming out the other side then, of course, I was terrified to go back into the world of the unknown, which is what I had loved before. Yeah, it was hard. Now I'm used to it again. But it was a big shift to leave all of that. It was very sad. I didn't want to go, but I also understood that it was the right time for me to go. All of the actors that I had worked with, pretty much all of them, had gone. There was no real storyline left that the writers could create for my character. So we all knew it was the time for me to leave.
You had your daughter by now, because that was in 2001. Now, I know you had a lot of difficulty with infertility and a great deal of IVF. How did you cope with all of that?
I think I'm the sort of personality where I'm quite sort of stoic, but I also positive. Like I'm a glass half full sort of person. So I was lucky enough. I mean, I had to have my daughter through IVF, but I got pregnant on the second attempt. So I just assumed that thereafter I would be able to have more children, but it didn't work out. And so we tried a lot. We went through in vitro, we went through various adoptions that all at the very, very last moment sort of fell apart. It was difficult. It was a difficult time for me, and I would say it absolutely contributed to the breakup of my second marriage, 100%.
But that period did bring you back into the theatre. One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Yes.
How important was that?
It was a really wonderful sort of step back into the world of theatre for me. It had come out of the blue. Frances Barber had been in the production that had been a massive success at the Edinburgh Festival the year before with Christian Slater playing McMurphy. Frankie couldn't do the West End run because she'd committed to something else. And so I was asked to step in her place. It was a great production because all of the mental hospital inmates were all stand-up comedians. And so there was just a very different perspective in the rehearsal room. The problem for me was the literal day I arrived from Los Angeles to start rehearsing. And we had a 2-week rehearsal break before we opened. Not 2-week rehearsal break, 2-week rehearsal time. I concussed myself twice in one day, quite severely. The second time it happened on the same day, I actually fell flat on my face, knocked my front teeth out, having bitten through my lower lip.
How did you do this? To concuss yourself twice, that's big.
So I had come off the plane from Los Angeles and gone straight into the rehearsal room and started. So I was jet lagged. We had a lunch break, and walking to the little cafe round the corner, I was walking with two of the stand-up comedians, one who was incredibly tall and one who was very, very short. And so I was talking to them and looking up and down while I was talking, and I walked straight into a lamppost, and I walked into it with such force that it knocked me back onto the pavement. I mean, it was a proper sort of Laurel and Hardy kind of slapstick move. And I was so embarrassed because I was with these stand-up comedians that I just sort of got up and carried on walking and talking, pretending nothing had happened. And I had actually really dinged myself quite badly. After lunch, went back to the rehearsal room, carried on rehearsing, and then Christian and I were invited to the opening of a play that night. It was the press night. So straight from the rehearsal room, we went to this press night opening. Afterwards, we were at Joe Allen's and sitting around the table. And suddenly I just felt all the sound leave my ears, and I thought I was going to be sick. And so I remember getting up from the table and looking for the toilets. And as I was walking through the restaurant, I literally fainted and fell flat on my face and knocked my teeth out, bit through my lower lip. Went to the hospital with the producers, of course, and they sort of pushed my teeth back in and sort of stitched them in and said, look, this is temporary. We don't know how long this will stay. You need to go to the dentist. They also said, you can't do anything. You can't read. You can't watch television. You just have to sit in bed for a week, just relax, wait until everything has calmed down. And I was like, but I'm an actor. Of course I can't do that. I'm rehearsing that we open in a week. And so I was back in the rehearsal room.
And you just did it
the next
concussed.
day. Just did it. Just did it. And I mean, my lip was like a deep dish pizza. It was out here because it had all been stitched up. I mean, I was playing Nurse Ratched, but nevertheless, I sort of vanity was out the window. But the thing is, in the rehearsal room, we literally had a week to go. And the poor director, Terry, every time he gave me a note, I would hear it, I'd absorb it, but then it left. And I couldn't retain my lines. So when we were then in previews, luckily, all of the stand-up comedians all knew my lines. And so when they saw me suddenly on stage, sort of blanking, they would come in and either they would offer me up a question that would then make me say my line, or they would just say the line themselves, or they would improvise around me. I mean, it was quite extraordinary, actually. Press night. I mean, this is Dr. Theatre, if ever there was. So press night, I was thinking, this is going to be awful. What if I have a, complete blank again with all of the reviewers, the critics all there? And the veil literally went up from my eyes and it left me. Everything, I was completely lucid, knew what I was doing. And that was it.
That's amazing. Designed for people over 50, the Saga Easy Access Savings Account is here to get your money moving. With a competitive variable rate that includes a fixed bonus for the first 12 months, you can really boost your returns from day one. Easy to open and easy to manage. It also comes with the quality of customer support you can't put a price on. Available to UK residents only in partnership with NatWest. To get started, visit saga.co.uk/podcast. Now, I have to tell you, in the past year or so, I have seen you play Prospero at the Royal Shakespeare Company, so you did make it to the RSC.
Yes.
And also the Boleyn Girls' mother
Yes.
at Chichester. How easy is it to find really good parts as you get older?
I mean, I absolutely believe that it's possible. I'm not, when it comes to Shakespeare, I've never been interested in playing Hamlet. I've never been interested in being a man on stage. But when I was offered the role of Prospero, I was thrilled because I thought I can play Prospero as a woman, as a mother. And that was, I think, I'm sure it'll be one of the highlights for me emotionally of my career when I end my days. That I so enjoyed playing that role. So, there are opportunities. And also I just feel like in television, particularly, I can't really speak for America at the moment, but particularly in England, I feel like roles are being offered to women who are past 50. More than just playing the mother-in-law or the grumpy neighbor, or those are sort of like the roles that I remember as a child thinking that that's what women played when they were older. But that's not the case anymore. I mean, I absolutely think that there is much greater scope. Of course, there can always be more, but I do think we are really going in the right direction.
Now, the other Boleyn girl,
Yeah.
Of course, is the other Boleyn girl,
Yes.
the famous one sister, who didn't get her head chopped off. But it was during that production that you were diagnosed with a rather nasty problem.
Yes. Well, I didn't know. I wasn't diagnosed with it then, but certainly it's ironic really, because we had this bright white floor, stage floor. I was in a scene where I didn't have any lines, thank goodness, in this scene. But we were in a scene where we were surrounding Mary Boleyn, my daughter, who's about to give birth to Henry VIII's child. And of course, there's all the discussion is basically, are you going to survive the childbirth or not? And while this scene is going on and I'm standing at the head of the bed, I started hemorrhaging. I just kind of thought, oh my gosh, this is going to be awful, because when I leave the stage, the audience might think that this is a sort of artistically theatrical coup, because there'll be a great big swoosh of red as I leave the stage, but the cast will be freaked out. So I had knee pads on because of all of the genuflecting. So I just knocked my knees together and hoped that my knee pads would absorb what was happening under my Tudor skirts, which they did. And I didn't know what was going on. The quick change ladies backstage, they just grabbed me pads, and I just basically stuffed them into my drawers and went back on stage. And it sort of, I mean, that's what happened basically for the run. I was able, after a few days, I was able to get to the doctor, and the doctor gave me some tablets to try and stem the bleeding, which it partially did. I went to the local hospital. I had a CT scan, and they said that things didn't necessarily look as they should, but they wouldn't say anything more, and they just said, wait until the end of the run and then go to your hospital. They sent all of their notes to my local hospital, and you need to have further investigation. I thought, I mean, I just can't believe, and this is me being glass half full. My father had just died, so I thought maybe it was stress. I even thought, have I tied my corset too tight? I mean, have I got a UTI or something, a really bad UTI because I've tied my corset too tight? I mean, it's nuts, really. And then,
But it was a classic case of the show must go
the
on,
classic
wasn't it?
case of the show must go on. And the show did go on for 6 weeks. I mean, I wasn't going to stop. And I didn't have an understudy. So there was absolutely, I had to perform. Otherwise, there would be no performance. I mean, there'd be no show. I even thought it's a burst fibroid. It must be a burst fibroid. I didn't know what that was necessarily, but that's what I thought it was. So I absolutely did not think I had cancer. And I'd accepted, I was about to do another job. And I had to pull out when the diagnosis then eventually came through. So that was a shock. But I think because I was so not prepared, it happened so fast that actually, in a funny sort of way, I didn't have time to be scared because I hadn't mulled over it. I hadn't dwelt on it. I just sort of dealt with it.
And of course, it was cancer of the uterus.
Yes.
And I know you've said, I don't know where you said it, but I've read about it somewhere, that you said nothing embarrasses you. Maybe that explains it. I mean, otherwise it would have been terribly embarrassing what happened.
Oh no, I know. I wasn't embarrassed at all. I didn't know what was happening. And certainly when it was happening on stage, I was more concerned about the rest of the actors being freaked out by and embarrassed. Yes. Yeah. But the thing is, actors on the whole, we're very supportive of one another. I mean, just at the moment, having been on Strictly, I felt like I was at home. Backstage, people are wandering around in states of undress, hugging each other, being just normal. And I love that world. When I was younger, I used to do life modelling. I'm not sort of somebody who is prudish at all. I'm very sort of earthy, and I think that explains my reaction.
How much did the experience of the cancer, the surgery, the radiation, I think you had after that,
Yes,
the really hard work to get better,
yes.
how much did that influence your decision to do Strictly?
Massively. Yes, it did actually. I had been asked over the years before to go on the show, and I hadn't. And this time round, after after I had gone through all of the cancer treatment, I actually felt fantastic. Almost as soon as I'd had the surgery, even before the radiation, I felt like me again in a way that I hadn't felt for years. And I'd put it down to, oh, this is what it's like to now be in your 60s. You know, you feel a bit tired, you feel a bit bloated, you've got sort of niggling aches and pains. I just thought that was age. All of that went as soon as I had the hysterectomy. It just went. And admittedly, radiation therapy, it's tiring, but it's more tiring because you've got to do it every single day. You know, you can't really focus on anything else. It takes sort of so much time out of your day, and it's sort of emotionally exhausting. Once I was through that, I felt like Superwoman. And so when they came and asked me again if I wanted to do Strictly, I just thought, right, it's now or never. I will regret, because I love dancing, I will regret actually having said no.
You're dancing. I mean, again, I watched you. Look, okay, I'm one of your super fans. I have to tell you this. I watched you every week, and I thought, my goodness, she looks like a professional dancer. But you hadn't done professional dancing in the past, had you?
No, I hadn't. No, absolutely not. You know, the lovely thing was that Johannes said to me, he said to me towards the end of my journey on the show, he said, I wish you had done this 20 years ago. Because he said, if you had actually learnt how to dance professionally 20 years ago, or even added it on to your drama training, he said you would be a dancer because you've got your body has the rhythm, it has what it takes. But you know, I didn't know that.
But you lasted for a long time.
Yeah.
Before you had to leave.
Yeah.
And lots of people were very disappointed that you had to leave because we thought you were really good and should go to the final, but there you go. Was there something in you that made you think, it's time for me to leave now?
Well, the thing that told me it's time for me to leave was that I had injuries. When we were in Blackpool, I popped a rib. And so I was dancing with a rib that was
sticking out,
basically. And and we had to literally before we went live, we had to change the choreography because there was just certain things I could not do because of the rib. But so I got through Blackpool, but then I caught while I was in Blackpool a stomach bug. So the week leading up to my last week, I was vomiting, and I mean, it was just awful. And then I think because of my rib, I actually vomited my rib back into place. I was vomiting so excessively every 20 minutes. I literally vomited my rib back into place. But I had put all of my weight and energy onto my right side to protect my rib. And so my hips and sacrum and everything had gone out of alignment while we were rehearsing the cha-cha-cha. And again, on the Saturday, in the run-up to the live show, my leg just gave way. It literally, my muscle just sort of, I don't even know exactly, my muscle wouldn't fire. And I think it was because my hip was not in the where it should be. And so I couldn't move. I couldn't lift my legs to go up the stairs. It was so sort of shocking. And for me, and I was so desperate because I was really looking forward to doing the cha-cha-cha because it's one of the Latin dances and I knew I could do it well. And I just couldn't believe that my body was letting me down. So, there was no way I could have carried on. I needed to take time, have physio, and actually recover. And it was my body. And in fact, I expressed it because I said, my heart and my soul want to carry on, but my body has now said it's time to stop.
Now, obviously, things are going to change on Strictly
Yeah.
when the two presenters leave. Who do you think should take over and present it?
I've got my ideas as to who I think should take over, but I'm not going to say just in case I jinx it.
Is it one person?
No, I've got two. I've got two people who I think would be very, very good at doing both of the jobs. And the thing that's interesting is they're very different requirements. Claudia, she's created the Clauditorium. I mean, what are we going to call it after Claudia leaves? She's brilliant at conversing. She's got that very dry wit. She can sort of bring the humour out in people. Tess, I think Tess has, not that she's had a bad rap, but I think people don't realise how hard of a job it is that Tess has been doing. When you dance, the minute the dance stops, my head was just empty. You're sort of in a collective shock. And Tess grabs your hand and holds you and asks if you're okay and tells you what a wonderful dance it is. And she keeps holding your hand, and she's sort of like this incredible grounding bridge between you and then the critiques of the judges. And she looks at you in a way that just centers you. And so it's something that's not all people can do that. And she's genuine.
So hang on a minute. You're not going to give me any names,
No,
are
I
you?
can't. No, I'm not going to give you any names.
Male, female, both female, both male?
Both female for me. Yeah, both female.
Why do you think both female works so well?
Well, it's just because I think these two specific people would be the best at the job. It's not necessarily that I think it should be two females. It's just that if I think about people who are out there who have potential to do it, I think the two best people are two women at the moment.
Okay, well, we'll have to wait until later in the year to see if
one.
Right.
Okay, yeah. I'll give you the initials.
Go on then.
ZB and KD. Actually, it could be CD. I'm not sure. It's either C or a K.
No idea. I'm sure other people will get it, but I have not got it. It seems ridiculous to me to ask you what you do in your spare time, because I can't imagine you actually have any spare time. But do you do anything in spare time?
Well, yes, I do, although it's quite difficult to stay consistent because of my work. So I started campanology. So I'm a very, very novice bell ringer. But again, I got to a certain stage in my bell ringing abilities, and then I got job after job after job. So it all stopped. Now I've got a little bit of time, so I've got to start it up again. But I'm going to have to start from the beginning again because it's quite dangerous. You can't mess around with these massively heavy church bells. I'm not religious at all, but I love the community. I love going in there, and I love actually trying this new skill. I also am a beekeeper, although having said that, the year that I had cancer, I had cancer, my dad died, and my bees died. And so it was a pretty disastrous year. This year, I'm going to start up a colony again. I'll get a colony and start my beekeeping again, which I love. I love gardening. And we moved relatively recently to our home, and so there's a lot to do in the garden, which is exciting.
And you do actually have a new TV series
I
coming
do.
up.
Oh, yes. That's what I did last year.
Yeah, Secret Service.
Secret Service, yes. I think that's coming out in the spring.
What's your role like?
So my character, she's within the Secret Intelligence Service. She basically looks after all of the agents who are out in the field. That's her job. She's a mentor to the leading character played by Gemma Arterton, Kate. And she's working very much still in what's a kind of quite a male-dominated world, but she's there to really support the women in particular. Yeah, it was fun to do. For me, it was my first job after all of my cancer treatment, and so it was a nice job, not too challenging. It was a lovely job to sort of step back into work with.
There's one question that I'm putting to all my guests in these podcasts, and it's, if you had a piece of advice for your 18-year-old self, what would it be?
That's quite a hard question, actually, because if I look back at how I was when I was 18, as I said, I was so naive, and I just sort of blithely believed that it would all work out. And I don't know whether I could say that to my 18-year-old self in this day and age. I think it's a much, much more difficult world that young people are entering into out of their higher education. I would like to be able to say, trust your instincts, and yeah, I think that would be it. But it's tough. It's such a tough world now. I mean, I find it very difficult to even know how to. My daughter is about to graduate from drama school, and I find it difficult to know how even to provide her with any sort of help or encouragement, because I don't know the world from her perspective. Yeah, it's not going to be easy. It's going to be a struggle, that's for sure.
Alex Kingston, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you. It's been really my pleasure.
Well, thank you, Alex, for joining me on Experiences Everything, brought to you by Saga. Alex's drama, Secret Service, will be coming to ITV1 and ITVX this spring. This podcast was brought to you by Saga Money, the personal finance experts for people over 50. We design products tailored to your needs, from savings and investments to mortgages and estate planning. To find out more, just go to saga.co.uk/money.